The story of Thomas Benton White's journey to establish the Benton County Enterprise in Warsaw is the epitome of early Missouri newspaper pioneering, establishing a dedication to journalism that has continued through 5 generations. White came to Warsaw in 1879 from Denver, Colorado, where he'd been a reporter for the Rocky Mountain News. With $500 to his name and 5 children, he purchased the Osage Queen, a riverboat that had once traveled the waters between St. Louis and Warsaw before partially sinking when it was caught in an ice jam. Using $300 of the family's money, White hired a mule team and, with the help of many of the town's men, dragged the boat ashore to his site on the town's main thoroughfare. He spent the remainder of the family's money on a used Washington hand-press type and paper. "My 3 sons and daughters, too, will set the typeface each week for you," was the opening statement White used to let Warsaw's early residents know his family would work hard for the community. And work they did in all endeavors, from raising crops as an agricultural experiment in the area to following up on myths that Spanish explorers had found gold on the Osage River. Their newspaper office was also the first location in town to install a teletype machine.
I'm reminded of my great-great-grandfather every day when I walk into the office. The chair that he used to edit the Enterprise is in my office. His pocket watch is on my desk, and the first teletype in Warsaw that he had is actually, I've got it there as well. But I think the lessons that I take looking back at his life and how he edited the Enterprise is that he was relentlessly local, and all news was local. No matter how unimportant, people in larger metropolitan areas might have thought something was, it was a big deal to people in our area, and he always honed in on that. And births, deaths, who grew something out of their garden that was extraordinary. And in addition to that, being local, he was also tenacious, which is a lesson I think everyone in the newspaper industry can learn from those early newspaper pioneers as our industry is evolving, is that tenacity that early newspaper people had and a can-do spirit. And I think that's what I take from him.
During the 38 years he edited the Enterprise, White changed the culture of Benton County and set a precedent for his family to be involved in the community that has continued to this day. He believed in delivering local news that would bring and keep the community together. After falling ill in early 1922, White appointed his son, Edwin Mallon White, as his successor and retired 2 months before his death in May of that year. For 47 years, Francis Stufflebam used his editorial page in the Bolivar Herald to advocate for the betterment of Bolivar and Polk County. His ownership and management of the newspaper began in June 1904 with a self-penned introduction that promised to advocate Jeffersonian democracy, pure and simple, high standards for the county's schools and teachers, and anything contributing to the uplifting of town, state, or nation. Formerly the Polk County Commissioner of Schools, Stufflebam backed up his promise in the very first edition of his ownership of the newspaper with an offer to provide a scholarship to Southwest Baptist College for the child who sold the most paid yearly subscriptions. It would not be the first time he would work with the college, and the relationship between publisher and school would culminate with the naming of the college's original campus after him to commemorate his efforts to revitalize and sustain SBC.
He was a county education commissioner or whatever, and he happened to be in Bolivar. Somebody convinced him to buy the Bolivar Herald, and he did this without the knowledge of his wife. And as a matter of fact, it was a week or 2 weeks before he informed her that he had bought the newspaper. That wouldn't be that big of a deal for some people, but in his case, that wife was the same person who had once told him that she would not marry him if he bought a newspaper that he was looking at buying at that time. She didn't want to be married to a newspaper person, I guess. So how courageous was that, to buy something and then think for a couple of weeks in regard to how long it was, how he was going to present that information.
Stufflebam's crowning achievement in the community came when he sought national recognition for the city of Bolivar and worked with the nation of Venezuela to present a statue of Simón Bolívar, the liberator, to the city. Even though World War II delayed his efforts, on July 5, 1948, Venezuelan President Romulo Gallegos met U.S. President Harry S. Truman in the city for the dedication of the statue in front of an estimated 80,000 spectators. Perhaps most impressive about Stufflebam's achievements is that his efforts came from the minority political position in the community. While Polk County was and remains staunchly Republican, the Bolivar Herald flew its Democrat banner proudly under Stufflebam's ownership. Competition between the Herald and the rival Bolivar Free Press was fierce but fair.
And I didn't have the opportunity to know him, but he was the kind who was cut from the same sort of model that I think that a community journalist should be. I didn't want to be one of those people who was out front, always on stage, always being the face of an effort. I thought it was a whole lot better for somebody else to be that person out front and then have the newspaper be telling the story about them. And I don't think he was in the forefront of that in terms of a lot of public recognition at the time, but when you look back, he was one who was driving the force, and there were some other faces on stage and getting the attention, and I think that's the way he wanted it to be, and I think that's a pretty effective way for a community journalist to work.
A departure from pervasive attitudes between the two publications prior to 1904. He would remain involved with the Herald until his death in 1951. The quintessential small newspaper team, Phil and Kathy Conger, represent the third generation of family ownership for the Bethany Republican Clipper. Phil succeeded his father, Vincent, as publisher in 1978. His grandfather, Irwin, purchased the paper in 1927. He started working at the newspaper in high school and would go on to receive a journalism degree from the University of Missouri, where he met his future wife, Kathy Strout. Phil and Kathy married in July 1969. She joined the newspaper family thereafter, doing tasks as needed and eventually selling advertising. Today, Kathy is the newspaper's advertising manager. Through the years, Phil and Kathy have worked as a team to keep their communities informed and help advertisers reach an audience that can be spread wide across northern Missouri. With 4 Iowa newspapers, they jointly operated a commercial printing plant for 40 years. While they've always recognized the challenges that come with publishing a small-town newspaper, the Congers have also embraced ideas that represent the future of digital publishing.
I've known Kathy and Phil for close to 40 years, and they're just, I think I said iconic newspaper publishers up in Northwest Missouri. They are, in my opinion, Northwest Missouri. They're a family publication, third generation. Phil's grandfather, I think it was 1927, bought the paper or started the paper or combined the paper. They have volunteered through the years, and they just continue to throw themselves at projects and that kind of thing that support all newspapers.
Phil was Missouri Press Association president from 2012 and remains a director on the Missouri Press Service Board. He also was president of the Northwest Missouri Press Association in 1974. Kathy, a director of the Missouri Press Foundation, is also the de facto secretary of the Northwest Press Association. She also served as president of Northwest Press in 1992. They continue to be very active in various Missouri Press functions and have earned numerous awards for the newspaper. A groundbreaker and trendsetter, Carol Stark is known by many throughout the newspaper industry for her leadership, judgment, passion, and compassion. Since her first journalism job in 1977 at the Carthage Press and continuing on to her work with the Globe beginning in 1983, Stark has remained a champion of local news, believing that even though the work is not easy, the effort local news has on the community can never be replaced. From her beginnings at the Globe, Stark worked her way up the newsroom, becoming Metro editor in 2003 and then executive editor in 2007. She was the first woman in the newspaper's 111-year history to hold that position. In 2018, the same year she served as president of the Missouri Press Association, her role was expanded further as she was named regional editor for the Globe's parent company, CNHI. Following the May 2011 Joplin tornado, Stark and her newsroom were thrust into the national spotlight as the newspaper led editorial coverage of the aftermath of one of Missouri's worst natural disasters. Through their hard work and dedication, the Globe's staff earned the respect of the community for its coverage of the events, despite suffering its own losses. In leading her staff, Stark encourages them to utilize the newest tools to tell stories and inform the community. But she also stresses the tenets of proper journalism have not changed.
Hi, Carol. Congratulations on being named the Missouri Press Hall of Fame. I can't be more proud. And I'm so happy that I could play a small part in it. I think about our early conversations when we first met, and you talked about when you were that cub reporter at the Carthage Press, and you sat at your desk, and you read the Joplin Globe every day, and you said to yourself, "Self, I'm going to be the editor of the Joplin Globe." It didn't take you long, because I know you and everybody in this room knows you, how determined you really are. You became the best reporter they ever had. The Globe took a chance back in those days and brought you on as a reporter. And lo and behold, you grew and grew and became the best editor that the Joplin Globe has ever had. You brought the Globe through a very tough time after the tornado. The city was in despair. They relied on the Joplin Globe more than they ever did before, and you delivered. You've trained many people that have become extremely successful. You've represented the community. You've treated the community fair, but you reported the news as it is, and we never compromised. You should be very proud. And here we are tonight, celebrating Carol Stark, a member of the Missouri Press Hall of Fame. Your passion, your love of the game, the love of your people, the love of the paper, the community, and your family. What an amazing thing to be recognized for all that you've done, for not only for the Missouri Press and for Missouri, but for the community of Joplin. I can't say enough how proud I am that I got the chance to work with you for 9 years. Carol Stark, congratulations for being part of the Missouri Press Hall of Fame.
Stark has been a longtime advocate of helping young journalists break into the profession, including being an advisor to the Missouri Southern State University's The Chart, working with Joplin High School students on their newspaper, The Spyglass, running an annual journalism workshop for high school students for more than 30 years, and supporting legislation that would protect the journalism produced by high school students.